So today I'm going to be talking about immigration. What is going to cause immigration to the United States in the late 19th, early 20th century, so late 1800s, early 1900s, and how, briefly, we'll talk about how Americans are going to respond. So just for some context, early immigration to the United States, think colonial period, is going to primarily come from Western Europe. So England, France, and Spain. For the most part, you're going to see English, French, and some German immigrants coming over, and they're going to have a lot in common. While they speak different languages, they're going to have similar backgrounds on government. They're going to have similar religious backgrounds as well, especially from England and France, with Protestant faith. But we're going to see a shift in the immigrants who are going to come over to the United States later on. We have what we call the new immigrants. So Irish get clumped into this even though they were from Western Europe, but the new immigrants tended to come from Eastern Europe, Southern Europe, and China. So Irish, German, we're going to have Italians, Eastern Europeans as well as an increase in Chinese immigrants on the Western coast. So this map is going to kind of show you where a lot of these immigrants are going to settle throughout the years. This map is going to go later into this century, but just kind of focus on the early immigration in the 1850s and beyond, where people are coming from, where they're going to settle, and kind of how it changes over time. So why? Why are they coming over? First, we're going to talk about push factors. What is pushing people out of their countries? So we did see a lot of low-paying jobs. The markets are going to shift a lot over in Europe and in China, where farmers aren't able to make enough money, able to grow enough crops in order to make enough money. So a lot of them lose their farms. We're seeing a lot of wars and revolutions happening, a lot of political instability in China and Eastern Europe. We also have religious persecutions, specifically towards Eastern European and Russian Jews are going to be persecuted more and more from their local communities, also from their governments. So we have people being pushed out of Europe because of this religious persecution. We're also going to see some famine. You may have heard of the Great Potato Famine in Ireland. There's going to be a lot of starvation that's happening. A lot of people can't work because potato farming was such a big industry in Ireland during this time. So a lot of people are going to be leaving Europe, coming over to the China, and coming over to the United States. So getting away from stuff, pull factors are what is bringing them here specifically. So we're going to have a lot of land. Remember with westward expansion, how the West gets opened up. So people see this opportunity to own their own land. We're also going to have an increase in jobs in the United States at this time. A lot of the jobs are going to be in mining, building railroads, working oil fields, being a farmhand, also a lot of factory work as well. We also have see this pole of chain immigration. So chain immigration is where one person comes over, and then as they they're going to save up money and help the rest of their families come over. So the rest of the family follows that first person and kind of creates this chain effect, or I like to think of it as a domino effect, where they're going to follow whoever came first. And kind of tying back into this persecution and revolutions, we have this promise in the United States of political and religious freedom. People want to come to be able to have their own ideas, believe what they believe, whether it's faith or politics. Most immigrants, not all, but most immigrants are going to go through two different checkpoints. Ellis Island is in New York Harbor, And that's going to, in the late 1800s, early 1890s, Ellis Island is going to open. And any immigrants who are coming from Europe are going to go through Ellis Island. Angel Island is going to open up a little bit later on in San Francisco. They're going to have more checks with Chinese immigrants coming into the country. Immigrants are going to come in, and there's going to be a lot of tests and things they need to go through in order to access and be allowed to enter into the country. So there's language tests. Preference was made to any immigrants who could speak English. You're going to have health checks. If someone was carrying disease or if they were sickly, they often would be turned back and forced back to their country. There is going to be some religious bias coming in as well. Catholics and Jews get turned away more often than Protestants did. Employment is also going to be a big factor as well. What job you have, what skills you have. The more skilled you are, the more likely you would be allowed to enter into the country and become an American. Less skills, the more likely you would be sent back to your country, rejected from entering the country. We have this huge influx of immigrants coming in. Thousands and thousands are going to be coming from these other countries during this time period. There's going to be a lot of resistance. Ellis Island in New York, during its small time that it was open, is going to see over 12 million immigrants come through its doors and be processed. So 12 million from, when was it? 1892 to 1954. And as we see this increase in immigrants, we see these two growing ideas. The first is xenophobia. Xenophobia is this dislike or prejudice against people from other countries. So it's a distrust of somebody from a foreign land. We also see, with xenophobia, you often see this growth of nativism. They kind of go hand in hand. Nativism is this policy and practice of protecting the people who were there already, people who were native born to a country, protecting them against immigrants. So we see a lot of different, quote unquote, different immigrants coming in during this time period. They're different because they're not Protestant. We see a lot of Catholics and Jewish faith coming over. The immigrants are going to be a little more impoverished. We're having a poorer class coming in to the United States trying to immigrate for opportunities. A lot of these immigrants are going to settle in cities instead of farms, which is very different from the early immigration we saw in the United States with the colonial period. And a lot of them are not going to speak English. So there's that distrust of like, they don't speak my language. They're not doing things the way my ancestors have, and they're having different faiths than what I have. So this distrust starts to grow. And there's this fear that immigrants are going to change America, that the Americans in the country are going to be overwhelmed and lose their cultural beliefs. And a lot of people are also worried about losing American jobs. Some of the pictures I just want to point out. In the bottom left, we have, this is a sign posted in New York business saying they want to hire people, but they are being very upfront saying they're not going to hire any Irishmen. On the right, we have a political cartoon with an immigrant getting off of the boat, and we have different business leaders kind of standing to greet him, telling him to turn back, don't come in. But you kind of see the shadow of his ancestors who were immigrants before him. And then up in the top right one, we have a very racially charged political cartoon. On the left, we have what was seen as a derogatory Irishman, like a caricature of an Irishman, not putting him in a very good light. On the right, we have a racist caricature of someone from China. And in between, we have Uncle Sam representing America, and it says the great fear of the period, that Uncle Sam may be swallowed by foreigners. So this is a very xenophobic image, so is this one. And then this is a satire about the nativism and xenophobia that's growing. So we're going to have different ways of talking about immigration, especially at this time. And they kind of oppose each other. One way of talking about immigration is this idea of a melting pot, that we're going to have all of these different cultures, all of these different ideas come together, and we will assimilate. We will combine to create one culture that all of us are a part of. So assimilation, or the melting pot. So we're going to get ideas and practices from different cultures and kind of create a new American culture. The other idea about immigration at this time is the salad bowl metaphor. This metaphor talks about how is this idea that all of these cultures are going to come in and they won't mix. So just like you can pick out lettuce or a crouton from a salad, you can very specifically pick out the cultures of the different people in America, saying we're always going to be separate, but we can still kind of be in America or a salad bowl together. So very different theories of cultures and theories of ideas on how to view immigration at this time. So America starts to get divided between these two ideas. We're going to look more at the immigrant experience, what it was like in class. But go ahead and answer the questions, and I will see you later.